announces the offer, and you buy the offer and you're excited. And in what you get one email that says, welcome to the program, or here's your download, or whatever it is. And then you also get another email that says, last chance, you better buy it now. And then you get another email that says, there's only 2 left. And then...
Hello and welcome to the Service-Based Business Society podcast. I am your host, Tiffany-Ann Bottcher. If you are ready to scale your success, grow your business, and live that entrepreneurial life, click subscribe because we're about to get started.
Hello and welcome back to another episode. Today we are talking about a really important topic, and we have a special guest to help us navigate that. This special guest is an expert in email deliverability. Now, this year, 2024, there were some big changes to email. And so even if you never struggled with email deliverability in the past, you may be struggling now, or struggles may be on the way, because some changes have been a slower rollout than were originally intended. And so what has happened is, even though it was well discussed that these changes were coming, sometimes even when business owners didn't make the updates to be compliant, their emails kept sending. And so everyone kind of forgot about it. Email deliverability and the way to preserve the health of your domain, your sending, all of that is super important, because ultimately, once it has been injured, it's hard to fix. And so today we have very special guest, Matt Ratliff, and he is here to talk about all sorts of things, email deliverability, when it's important, all of these different things. Matt has been in the tech industry for 18 years. He's actually a software engineer and has focused on email deliverability. And he's super knowledgeable. He's here to share a value-packed episode full of all sorts of information that every business owner who's sending email in any capacity needs to hear. This is not just if you're sending out email newsletters. This is not just if you're sending out, promotional email. This is affecting even if you just are on sending out your work email to your customers. So super important. And I am excited to introduce you to Matt. So welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
So super exciting to have you here. I've been a longtime follower online, and I see your name come up with so many different recommendations. Oftentimes you'll see things online, someone know how to do this, and you'll see similar names all the time. I see your name recommended for all sorts of different things. Why don't we jump in with, how did you even get started?
Well, I'm a tech guy. I've always been a tech guy. So my background is in network engineering. It's a computer network engineering. So everything that would make a computer network, the biggest one is the internet, right? So I'm the hands behind the scenes that kind of stitches everything together to make sure everyone can connect and do their thing. So that's my background. But where all of this got started, I think Funnel Techie was started back in, 2019. So I guess fairly recently. I began following Russell Brunson back in, 2017, and started, reading his books, and then finally went to a conference in 2018, went to the one in 2019. And in 2019, someone that was at Funnel Hacking Live gave me the epiphany for Funnel Techie. I realized at that moment that there were all of these people in this room. Russell makes everything from a funnel standpoint sound very easy. But the one thing that he never spoke anything about was kind of the tech stack behind the scenes, getting all of your DNS records correct, getting some, CSS code maybe on a funnel set correctly, different things like that, anything that an entrepreneur would kind of run into. So I thought it'd be kind of cool to be able to, come in and be that person that would solve those problems. So that's what I did. And it became pretty successful fairly quickly, which was amazing. Well, I didn't really love that process. I would get sort of really stuck in the weeds with, things that I didn't really enjoy doing, but that's okay. We run into that. But along the way, I guess it was around 2020, I suppose, I had a client that came to me maybe early 2021 that asked me, Matt, do you know anything about email deliverability? I'm having some issues. Can you help me? Well, early in my tech career, I used to develop a lot of Linux email servers, Microsoft Exchange email servers. I would deploy it to companies. I created gateways. So I knew a lot about the MTA that basically sends the email and all of the DNS records involved. So I had a huge background behind it. I was like, cool, let me look into it. I did it, solved their problem, fell in love with the process during that time frame, And then I decided at that moment to pivot and just strictly focus on email. But it is kind of confusing, right? So Funnel Techie is doing email stuff. I've got to figure that one out, but that's kind of where I'm at.
We did a big rebrand just earlier this year because same thing for us, that kind of evolution through business. And you start with,
Yeah.
one product and one offer. And ultimately as tech evolves, offers evolve, all these different things, then you at one point end up kind of saying like, hey, are we still in alignment? I am a firm believer that really the name is irrelevant. And, I'll be honest, until I was doing some research for the show, I didn't know that was your brand. You are the guy, you're the name. And
Awesome.
I knew you as the email guy. And I feel like
Nice.
in this year, especially, email deliverability has become a bigger topic for business owners than ever before. I mean, it's at one point you wrote an email, you clicked send, and you really didn't think much about it after that. It sent and you assumed it made it to its destination.
Took it for
granted. That was
granted.
it. That was it, plain and simple. And this year, that has, for almost every business owner that sends email, been completely turned upside down.
Yeah. The reason, so all of those changes, I guess we got notification that was going to happen around October-ish of last year, so 2023. So they were going to start rolling these changes out, meaning Google and Yahoo, rolling these changes out beginning February of 2024. And what that came down to is that, the increase in spam over the years has massively increased. And so for these inbox providers like Google and Yahoo, they want to protect their user base, their clientele better. So a part of that strategy would be to, meet these certain requirements, meaning that now you've got to have full domain alignment. You cannot have, a sending domain connected with ActiveCampaign or Mailgun and claim to send from a different domain to be able to get your email messages out. So that was something that a lot of folks were using, and that was acceptable for a long time. But in order to crack down on spam, now we're going back to domain alignment, which is definitely going to help with that. And then, of course, having an unsubscribe header in the email. Whenever you open up an email, there's a bunch of code in it. Well, in the header section, there needs to be a list unsubscribe post, one click. That became a part of the process, which makes it easier for a provider like Google and Yahoo to allow their user base to unsubscribe from messaging, which is a good thing. And then the other one was having a policy. And then that became something. So lots of changes and lots of things that we got to look at to make sure our domain health stays up there.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think that although there was a lot of talk about this firm deadline of February and whatnot, I know for many business owners that I know, nothing actually happened on that date, whether they had or had not actually become compliant. And it wasn't until later, slowly, all of a sudden, randomly, it would be like, oh, hey, this is not working. And it wasn't always not working. It was kind of like certain emails and certain links and certain things. And so, as much as there was a lot of discussion leading up to the February kind of cutoff, it was soft to start. And I think then it's one of those things that later it became a bigger issue for business owners.
Yeah, definitely. Google and Yahoo, they both realized that across the globe that they couldn't get everyone on board, come February 1st. So that was the hard date that they wanted to say, hey, this is starting to happen. Let's get your stuff in order. Let's start, putting everything in place. But then, yes, you're correct. They started doing rolling updates or requirements, right? So they slowly introduced from that point on all of these different pieces. But that was definitely to get everyone, massively scared so they can get their ducks in a row. And that, that certainly would have been a big undertaking. But slowly but surely, you would have noticed that in the beginning, come February 1st, nothing's happened just yet. But then eventually you start seeing those weird issues that came through, a lot of different codes, a lot of problems. And then it made people go ahead and meet those requirements. But
So with all of your diverse tech knowledge, how did you, really decide that you were going to go all in on email deliverability? What appealed that direction for you?
Well, the reason I decided to run with Funnel Tech, I wanted some extra side income. We always want that, right? And so even though Funnel Techie with, helping with, back end funnel tech was decent, it wasn't, doing as good as I wanted it to. When I fell into email deliverability, I realized that, money is in your list and people are willing to pay really good money to get you to help them, with their email deliverability. that was a huge turning point for me in realizing that. Not only that, I love to troubleshoot. I love to troubleshoot computer networks. If I could troubleshoot every single day of my life, I would be totally happy and content. Going into the email deliverability world, that allowed me to continue that troubleshooting mindset. And that kept me grounded, kept me focused, which I have got to be focused on something, or else I'll be all over the place. And so that was another piece of it. And those two matched, they came together. And I'm able to now grow my following even more. My name is getting out there more and more, which I never thought I'd get there. We always start very slow. And I'm thinking, God, this is taking forever to become an influencer around this, to get my name out. But now it's compounding. And that's another blessing, which I'm very proud of.
Yeah. So you started with Russell and the ClickFunnels space, and I know you from a very different world. So have you moved away from ClickFunnels, or do you still provide support for that client base? Are you as big a name over there as you are in the Go High Level community?
Well, that's funny. Well, funneltechie.com, which is my site, it's still running on ClickFunnels,
Interesting.
which is fine, right? But I do have my own high level agency. I don't use it for any clients. I use it for development purposes. But I do there are quite a few products of mine that are on high level that anytime that you make a purchase of do come through high level, which is kind of cool, but probably about 80% on high level and 20% inside of the other one, ClickFunnels.
Interesting. Yeah, interesting. I feel like Russell was such a huge name. And I say was, as in, I think he still is a huge name. And really a lot of what he teaches can be applied in any software. And I think that although Russell is really connected to one particular software, I think when you really, I've, like you said, read his books and follow him and learn, I feel like I've learned so much. But, when we really start to just take knowledge away from specific platforms, or marketing knowledge is 100% relevant with every software.
Yeah, well, his tactics still work today. Everything that he's taught in the past, it's still relevant and it works quite well. So he's still teaching, still doing his thing. I'm still listening. But yeah, I think that will still be around for many years to come, I'm sure.
So you were talking about different products that you have on Go High Level. Do you want to chat a little bit about those?
Yeah, well, so we can maybe start at why I chose to go the high level route. I very quickly fell in love with that platform because, me being a tech nerd, high level had such a vast amount of different features. We don't like to talk about features with any platform necessarily, but it allowed me to do so much crazy good stuff that I could not be a part of it. So I had to become a part of it. And so once I got into that world and realized all the things that I can do within workflows, all the cool things that I could do from an email standpoint, was amazing. So that's now where I am living. That's now where I'm staying. I really like the platform, and it's still growing and it's still making massive improvements. One of the things that I really like about it is, even though from an email deliverability standpoint, we see it kind of all over the group. If you're inside of the high level group, they talk about, lots of folks having email deliverability problems, and they blame it on high level. Well, when I started using it, I realized very quickly that they're giving us a lot more power, and a lot of that power is unbeknownst to a lot of folks. So now I have this massive control on my email that people are just not privy to. So through that process, I realized, well, I can build a tool called Inbox IQ and make it an add-on for high level. So now you can, in one single pane of glass, see your email stats. You can see all of the different deliverability components, which we could talk about if you want to dive deep into it. So that was the very first tool that I built really to help me with my client base that I was helping with email deliverability. But it gave me clarity, gave them clarity to see different things. Then I went in and decided, well, high level is not really giving us the ability to create sunset policies. So you can imagine that if you've got a list of 10,000 contacts, and all of a sudden your deliverability rate is tanking because there's low engagement, well, we've got to have something that identifies those folks that are not opening your messages. We've got to identify them. So I built an email engagement system for high level that allows you to basically turn the system on in the background. It collects data and allows you to pinpoint those folks that are both engaging with you and not engaging with you. And the beauty behind that is that for the folks that are not engaging with you, you can segment them. And so later on down the road, you can take this segment of your contacts move them into a reactivation series if you so choose to try to win them back, as long as they've not unsubscribed. And that's been a really good strategy for a lot of folks. And it's been key for a lot of folks too. So I'm trying to teach that method. I'm going to start doing a lot more YouTube videos around it. I'm going to basically open my book and show everybody how I do stuff so that I can teach the masses. So that's kind of the plan. But Inbox IQ and my email engagement system have been two really good best sellers for me. And I've done a ton of things around automation, around setting up custom domains through Mailgun. Basically, it's a system that allows you to, if you're onboarding SaaS clients, as long as they are coming through your high-level ecosystem, you can go through this automation and their backend Mailgun domain is created. All of the other pieces that are relevant to it are created, all the DNS records, and it's added to your to their high-level location, all in under 2 minutes. So I built that too early on. So lots of cool things.
It's very interesting because I remember starting with high level and email, and that was really my first lesson in email and all of these different components. Going into that, I had no idea what Mailgun was. I had all of these different things that you learn. Now it's kind of like, now we're moving along and whatnot. But for those people who have a big client list that's maybe super old and there's so much chatter now about, well, you're not allowed to email and this and that. So you said something that I thought was super important. Said, if they haven't unsubscribed, then you can go ahead and email them. And so there's, I think, a fear of, if I send too many emails and something goes wrong, is it going to get my domain shut down? And this is a stress of business owners with the new rules.
Well, so that exactly. And so it's a good point. And so basically, what everyone needs to be mindful of is that we need to understand our audience. And so my audience would be different from your audience. So maybe I can send 3 emails a week to my audience and be okay, or more. Or maybe I should send less. It kind of depends. So all of us are going to have different reactions to the time frame. And plus, it's a mixed bag of different people. But what I have found is that it's going to be very advantageous for us to watch those metrics over time. There's different systems that you can tap into to see, there's free feedback loop systems or a free feedback loop system with Google that you can tap into called GPT, not Chat GPT, but it's Google Postmaster Tools. And so Google will actually show you what your domain health is. It'll show you the sending IP reputation that you've got, your spam complaint rate. So all of those things would be a telltale sign. And then, of course, one thing that I would stress is that don't be afraid to send email. We need data so that we know how to adjust to it, but just be mindful of all of your email stats. So if you're in high level or any platform, even ActiveCampaign, we're wanting to watch for holistic stats across the board. And as long as things are trending in the right direction, meaning let's say that you've got a 60% open rate holistically across your email foundation, and this is over a 30-day period, that speaks volumes to your overall health. Now, can we drill down to per inbox to see, how your reputation is per Google, Outlook, Yahoo, things like that? Some systems can, while other systems can't. It just depends on kind of the system that you're using and the data that they're providing you. But definitely keep an eye on those open stats, because people are going to see your email that comes into their inbox. Hopefully it's the inbox. And they're going to open that message based upon, they either from, I know this person, they've sent good stuff in the past, I'm going to open it. Or maybe they've seen the subject line that you've used in the email. Maybe that caught their eye. They're going to open it. We want to continue with that engagement. Certainly the thing that we don't want is folks to mark us as spam because maybe the messaging to them isn't quite relevant. That's another really good segue into talking about list segmentation, making sure that your messaging aligns with the audience. But the other thing is that, the inbox providers, they want to make sure that the behavior with the emails that you're sending to their contact base, we want to make sure that those folks are opening it. So as long as the engagement stays up, that's really ultimately what we want. But having that sunset policy baked in and not being afraid to send emails, you're going to only know after you've sent a few and continue that to know exactly what your audience wants.
So when I have talked to different business owners about segmentation, this is kind of a big word. And if you're not super familiar with it, then you think, what does that really mean? And one of the examples that I have given, and I'm interested in if you have something that might even be better, but there's nothing worse than someone sends you an email with something exciting and it says, would you like to buy, announces the offer, and you buy the offer. and you're excited, and in what you get one email that says, welcome to the program, or here's your download, or whatever it is. And then you also get another email that says, last chance, you better buy it now. And then you get another email that says, there's only 2 left. And then you're getting one email that's talking about welcome. They know you've purchased, but somewhere in their sequencing, they have not added the appropriate path to divert you from a possible purchaser to a purchaser. So now you're getting hammered on 2 fronts. And I feel like that could really, right away, you just feel like, hey, you're not super organized. This is not relevant to me. You're telling me that I've already purchased from you.
So you're, to your point, it kind of does paint a bad picture. And so that really comes down to the automations that are behind the platform. Lots of platforms have it. A high level is very good at it. I love Active Campaigns automation sequence. I'm not a big fan of, Keep, Confusionsoft, as they used to say. But all of those automations, so it's almost like the people that are creating your automations behind the scene, whether it be yourself or that person, you've got to almost become an automations engineer. And you've got to think a few steps ahead to understand exactly how this should flow. And so the best thing to do there is I've got a whiteboard next to me. I've got 3 windows in front of me. My windows are covered in writing. I use a marker and I just go to the windows, and my wife doesn't like it, but I do that. And so I can visualize it. And so that's typically what I do. I do the same thing with anytime that I'm creating a new offer, anytime that I'm building some API sequences for high level or whatever system I'm building, I want to seek a flow. So understanding that piece is going to be critical. And that does, to your point too, it does go back to segmentation. So now if they got maybe the purchase tag, maybe not put them into this next sequence that's going to remind them, oh, there's only 2 left, or something like that. We got to make sure that we own that and think through that.
It really comes back to really understanding the journey. And I'm a whiteboard fanatic. Actually, when I left my office before I left the corporate space, at one point we had, so I was in the construction industry, technical trades. And at one point we had basically redone this what used to be an education space. And I claimed one of the giant school whiteboards. This was like, I was tickled pink because so it took up the whole wall of my office. And when I left the corporate space, I was sad to lose the team and all of those kinds of things. But let me tell you, the whiteboard, I was like, oh, I just want to take the whiteboard with me. I have I have the whiteboard now in my office, not nearly as big or as amazing, but
just same here. I'm used to those big ones. Yeah.
Taking the time to really map out and what if a customer does this? What if a customer, and oftentimes we really see it from a customer perspective, with the missed cart sequences that you get if you go shopping and add to the cart or those kinds of things. And I think that it's often kind of a missed step as people are building out their business workflows and processes. What is that next step that you want the customer to take, or what are their possible choices? So you talk about email engagement. And so a lot of times business owners are sending emails. Maybe they're announcing a promotion, or maybe it's that, typical monthly newsletter, those types of things. What are different, ways that a customer can engage with an email that would be a great thing for, that engagement rate that's going to keep that domain health up? Because, not every customer on your list is going to buy your offer. So what are other ways that we can say, what is engagement that can be positive?
Well, so, certainly the open is going to be critical, right? So we want to see an open event. Now, opens can be considered kind of a vanity metric. There are some mail programs that you might have Google connected to that might be blocking the open pixel, things of that sort. But, we're also looking for the click-through rate. Click-through rates are different for different industries, but, if we're around 1.2% or higher, that's kind of key. That's kind of ideal. But I've worked with, for example, I've got a client that I've worked with since last July. Overall click rates are not where I'd like to see them, but yet they're doing well financially too, with, bringing in new customers, their purchases happening. So, we're looking at the return on investment. We're watching our just overall our stats or domain health across all of the major inbox providers if we can, especially Google. But that's kind of the thing that we'd definitely keep an eye on. Opens, click-through rates, making sure that unsubscribes are minimal. We want to make sure that spam complaint rates are not above 0.1% ideally. But that's one spam complaint out of 1,000 if we're getting deep into it.
So I feel like most people, will put something to junk, but, as a business owner, I always, I feel like there's a couple things that you have to take seriously because you feel that from the other side. And number one is like reporting an email as spam is like one of those where you have to really feel passionate about that being spam, in my opinion, to be like
Same.
to click that button. And
Yeah.
then the other one is, the credit card chargeback. I mean, most business owners at one point or another have received the credit card chargeback.
Yeah.
If you haven't, then you've been pretty lucky. It's one of those are the couple things. And I always think as a business owner, it's like you understand the weight of a Google review. You don't click the spam button. You don't do the
The
credit
weight
card
of it.
chargeback. You try to, and those are, it's like the business owner etiquette, in my opinion.
Yeah. 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 And I'm in the email space, I get tons of emails and I'm very privy to all of that, kind of what you just mentioned. And I'll do people a favor, just, I'll go in and open the message and I might immediately click a link just so it sees some good metrics. And I'll not delete it until maybe a day or two after. Like I do weird things like that, even though I may not be interested. But the times that I do click the spam button is that if I get a cold email out of the blue, which I don't appreciate cold email necessarily. I don't like that world. Sometimes it's useful. Sometimes there's a place for it for sure. But if I get an email, people are touting with their service, telling me all about it, how they could help me. And especially if I don't see an unsubscribe, that just, it triggers a little section in my brain that I don't like. So I immediately hit spam and go to block. So that's what I don't like to see. Because, I teach those tactics. So there's certain things in an email that I need to see. And if I get a cold email like that, that's the route that I tend to go.
I early on, so I mean, I was corporate finance and tech, no sales experience, leave the corporate space. And I'm like, yeah, I'll figure it out. It's fine. We'll figure it out. And so I jumped into a lot of sales masterminds and online marketing, all of these types of things that I didn't have experience in. And so this one mastermind, there was this gentleman who spoke once a week and he was really leaned into cold email. And he made it sound like it was, if you were not doing cold email, I mean, who were you even really? And you were never going to be, and he did a great job. And so in the end, I was like, great, like I mean, maybe I need to get on this boat. Like I need to do this. And so, over a number of weeks, we got it all set up. It was quite the investment. And then just as it was done and ready to start, there was all these changes in email and he said, oh, that method's not working anymore. We're going to rebuild. And so this is, if I look back at some, some of the things I've invested in my own business over the time, that was one where I put in a sizable investment. And ultimately in the end, we ran cold email on the new method for about 6 weeks. Got nothing that was super positive. A lot of people and I thought, this really doesn't align with what we're doing. And it was almost kind of that reality check of, hey, like this doesn't feel right. And so we just abandoned the whole thing and called it a sunk cost. One
thing, it's tough, right? Yeah. And it's for some folks, they have some success with it, which, is awesome. But one thing that a lot of people are quite often not privy to is let's say that you go to SendGrid or Postmark or Mailgun or some other SMTP provider to send your cold messages. What's going to happen very soon, just because of the behavior behind that, these providers are going to be doing audits on your copy without you even realizing it. And then they're going to be watching for these stats. So they can tell if you're sending cold email based upon kind of the stats that are coming back. And what will happen in a very short order is that now you're going to be throttled to maybe 100 emails per day, or maybe they're going to disable your account temporarily until you can provide business justification. But they're doing all of this to protect IP infrastructure. So every email that you send, so you press the send button, every email that goes out to the world, there's an IP that gets attached to it. And that IP is owned by your ESP, your email service provider, whether that be ActiveCampaign, Mailgun, Postmark, SendGrid. So these providers want to make sure that their IP health is healthy. And so just know that they're also cracking down on spam because they need to do their due diligence to keep their IPs healthy. So that's another reason why, cold email is very difficult, especially now, and will continue to be so well into the future. And a lot of folks, they're going the Instantly route. I don't know if you've ever heard of Instantly. And there's other providers like that where they teach the game of connecting multiple domains with Google Workspace or maybe even Office 365. Google Workspace is the easiest, and then using that platform to send cold email. So that's something that they teach, which can be pretty decent to some degree, but yeah, it's becoming harder and harder, and Google is cracking down on it too. So eventually it's going to be very difficult to get any cold messaging out at some point in the future. Yeah.
Yeah, it's you look back at your journey, and there's a couple things along the way that you think, I probably wouldn't have done that again, but
Oh yeah.
it's you gotta try things out. And I think that it really did teach me a lot about different things in terms of email and whatnot. And their second method, I said the first method didn't, got abandoned. Their second method was instantly, like you mentioned there.
Yeah.
So, you are providing all of this support for different business owners and whatnot. The typical business owner who maybe has, almost everyone has on their website some kind of download. I often, as we're going through with people, and they're, it's to build the email list, and oftentimes there's zero, no one's in a year or something. But then other times, people are doing a really great job and they've got an email list, and now they don't really know what to do with it. And so, if you were looking at, what has worked for clients in the past and whatnot, where's a good place to start? If you're new and you're like, hey, I know that this is an opportunity for me, but what do I do next?
Yeah, well, that's the way that you painted that's good, because where I would start is, having an opt-in. And that's kind of the way I started. I created an opt-in to show folks kind of the method and kind of what to do to kind of start keeping their email deliverability in check. I created an opt-in page, and that's kind of where I really started to blow up with my email list, and that's how I've grown it. And so that's what I would encourage folks to do is, create something of value, something that people can use almost immediate, something that, gives them an answer to a problem they're facing, and, talk about it, make it known on various different channels. I do it on Facebook because that's, my greatest source of getting eyes on my products. I don't do so well with TikTok or Instagram or anything else, but that's where a lot of it comes from. And so they know how to go to the opt-in page. And then once you start gaining a following or, getting people to opt in, certainly don't be afraid to, craft an email and sort of just test the water. I wouldn't immediately pitch them on something necessarily. Maybe give them some more value, or, do a story-based type series, or, I would start certainly with value and speak to them directly and kind of see where it goes. And just keep that going. Now, I don't do a very good job of sending email on a regular cadence, even though I teach email deliverability and I provide that as a service. I'm very bad about keeping an email cadence up on my side, which hopefully that'll eventually get better. But I had to make myself, craft my very first email, and I sent it. I was very, very nervous, but it went quite well, and I continue to do that, not on the cadence that I should. But yeah, you have to start. And then once you do that more and more, you'll get some feedback from either the contact base or just from the data from the platform that you're using to send the email. And just learn it. You just got to start. Once you get that data back, you'll know kind of what direction to go next.
Yeah, it's in the entrepreneur journey, there's so many times where, just start, just do it. It's like your first reel or your first TikTok is not going to be great, but you're going to do it anyway, and it will get better. And, your first email, maybe not. I have a couple of, I have a couple of different, I have hundreds of emails that come in, but, some that you really look forward to, and not always businesses that you would necessarily deal with on a regular basis, but it keeps them top of mind, and it's great content. And so ultimately, whatever that is, that works for you, but you won't know what works for you until you get started. So,
basically,
a lot of the email programs have a lot of beautiful email templates. And I know there's a lot of discussion online about, aesthetics versus function, form over function, that type of thing. And so, do you find that there's a really big difference in the pretty email templates versus, an email that maybe has one image, couple links? Where is that? What are your thoughts on that kind of debate?
Yeah, well, I don't have a problem with HTML-based emails at all. What it really comes down to, we see a lot of folks kind of teaching online that, you should not send or add links in an email. You should do plain text email, things like that, in order to have the best chance to land in the inbox. And that's not necessarily true at all. In fact, kind of if we broke it down, why did that come to be? Why are people focused on, sending plain text emails? Where did that come from? Well, you can imagine that anytime that you're building an HTML email that, you wanted to make it look pretty. Platform that does it quite well is a platform like Klaviyo, right? So it's all built around e-commerce. So all of their emails are built around, HTML-based emails. So where all of this came from is that each of those components within the email to make it look pretty, that source is coming from someplace and it's being extracted. And so that's bogging down the system. Maybe some of those links are going back to a third party that maybe Google or Yahoo doesn't like necessarily. So now that source that's pulling in that image for your email has a bad reputation, perhaps. That's kind of where all of that came from. I don't see that necessarily in the real world as being a problem. I've done a lot of different tests with it, and I see it kind of a mixed bag. I don't really have a problem with HTML at all. And I don't necessarily have a problem with plain text. I think it's going to be another one of those things to really test against your audience. Certainly don't be afraid to use an HTML builder to build the email. Don't worry about that at all. I'm not worried about it. You shouldn't be either. Don't be worried about the number of links even in an email. What really matters most is the link quality. So you certainly wouldn't want to add a link to a third-party resource online that doesn't have a good reputation. We certainly wouldn't want to do that. We don't want to be, we certainly also don't want to use bit.ly links, that tends to have a bad reputation, things of that sort. If we're talking about high level specifically, early on, there was a time before they've made changes to where you could have branded links. There was a time where all of their links would be hard-coded back to the MSG SNDR domain, which routinely had a bad reputation only because a lot of people on the platform was abusing it for cold. So that's why all of that started. So that's why high level moved to the branded links. And now that's baked into your sub-account level. And you can even change it at the API level within the agency. That's all to say that, just make sure that you're linking back to a reputable domain within your emails.
So, and when you're kind of talking about branded links versus not branded links, so you're meaning, that and I think there's kind of a lack of understanding on subdomains versus, root domains and that kind of thing. But if it kind of has the software name really in the domain that you're using, then that's going to be shared across many different people, different users. Is that kind of a way to kind of easily explain it?
That is, and that's exactly right. If you're using a platform like ActiveCampaign, they've done a really good job though about trying to brand those links, but underneath the hood, they're sort of linking it back for link tracking back to maybe an active hosted link. We'd have to go in and look at those, but that's a good example as to why that could happen. So for email tracking purposes or email link tracking purposes, we certainly want that to be branded back to a domain that we own, so we got more control over it. And so that's where that comes from. You did mention subdomains, and I'd like to briefly talk about that because I think it's very valuable and very important for people to understand. And this could be relevant for any platform that you guys are using, even inside of ActiveCampaign. One thing that I want to preface is that it's not advantageous for you to send your emails from your root domain. So let's say, for example, you go into ActiveCampaign and stand up a domain to send from. They are really bad about making it super easy for you to add just your root domain and you send from that. Of course, we could use Mailgun even to do the exact same thing. Well, the reason that's bad, and we can use funneltechie.com as my example. I've got funneltechie.com living in Google G Suite. So that's my business inbox. Anytime that I get a purchase from any of my services or any of my products, I need that to come from a specific subdomain that's identified for that flow. And so that would be a transactional based domain. And so all of my emails would come from t.funneltechie.com. So if you were to receive an email from that situation, it's literally going to say matt@t.funneltechie.com. And I'm coding all my emails that way. Same thing in the marketing world. If I'm sending a marketing blast, all of my emails is going to be displayed this way. It's going to come from matt@funneltechie.com. So it is my marketing subdomain is just identified as M because it stands for marketing, and it's identified for that particular flow. So let's say, for example, I decided to use the funneltechie.com and code my from display email as matt@funneltechie. So now I've got two addresses inside the same email envelope. If at some point in the future, I get a lot of spam complaints on my marketing subdomain, what's going to happen? whatever negativity is happening on my marketing subdomain is going to bleed over to my root. And now if I ever wanted to pivot and bring up maybe another subdomain for marketing, my root is tarnished. So its reputation is going to bleed over to the new subdomain that I've created. And now I'm in the same boat. So what I'm saying is that it's going to be very beneficial for everyone to start focusing on different flows of email and using the subdomain to send from, and use it in your from display line, your from email display line. That's a very critical step for everyone to be mindful of.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, that subdomain sounds like is a great kind of health precaution, really keeping things separated so that if you have a problem in one, it's like if you have
Yeah.
something, it's the same reason, if you have a bad accident and they decide they're going to, sometimes they decide they need to remove a body part instead of letting that spread through the body. It's kind of the same thing.
Yeah.
It's keeping it segregated.
Yeah, exactly.
Great. Super valuable tips. And I think so it's even more important than ever before as, we're seeing these changes and whatnot. So
Definitely.
if you had one tangible tip for a business owner who, maybe is not super knowledgeable on the email and they're deciding to take those next steps, what is that recommendation they can go and implement?
Well, the one thing that I would say, share is that, we've covered a lot, but with any system that you go with, it doesn't really matter the system. They're going to tell you exactly what to do from a DNS record standpoint. So you're immediately going to meet all of those requirements that Google and Yahoo are wanting you to have. So you're going to meet the list unsubscribe post header. One click, you're going to meet the SPF and DKIM fields, which is a part of the authentication. And now that DMARC is a part of this, they're also going to make sure that you put in a DMARC policy. So out of the gate, you should be able to meet all of these requirements. The one thing that I have got to stress, especially for those that are either migrating from a platform to a new one, or maybe you've got an existing list and maybe it's been a while since you've sent an email, or you're newly standing up a new domain with an active list. The one thing that I have got to stress is that we do not want to immediately blast the entire list on day one, because what's going to happen is that the likelihood of that domain being tarnished is going to be very high. And it's going to take you a long time to sort of get out of that bad status with the inbox providers. The reason that happens is that, the inbox providers have never seen an email from you before. They don't know how your user base is going to react to those emails. So now they're watching all of this, you've sent a huge bulk email. The inbox providers are sort of scrambling, they want to protect their user base. And they see all of this negativity happening. People aren't, they're unsure of who this is. It's on a new domain. There's no reputation built on it. So, the inbox providers are going, they're all over the place trying to figure out exactly what to do. So too often, they're going to start deferring your email, or they're going to lower your reputation score down to a place where it shouldn't be. And now if that happens, in order to get that center score back up, it's going to take weeks, if not months, to either purge that data or self-correct it. So the best thing to do from day one would be to slowly, take chunks of your audience and slowly send emails out to them. In my world, with the people that I work with, I'm very cautious, and I start with maybe 200 per day. In other situations, if you're a client that has millions of contacts, I might start as high as 1,000 per day, maybe 5,000 per day. Kind of depends on the volume and kind of the history, the size of your audience, things of that sort. There's different reasons as to why I would start here or there, but typically, 200 to 500 per day is where I would start, and that would be for everyone. But start very slow so that you get an introduction to all of these inbox providers so that they know how to place your domain reputation. You're slowly building up this trust. And the key component here too is if you can identify people that have engaged with you in the past, if you've got that data, take advantage of it and use that as a strategy to slowly introduce your domain to the world, especially on a new domain. That's a piece of advice that I want to share.
Right. So if you've had people in the past who have engaged with your emails, and
Exactly.
you're saying, then resend to those, because you're going to get off on the right foot, and you don't want to start off on the wrong foot. That's
Exactly.
very, very helpful advice. So Matt, I think that email is, the technical aspects of this are a huge topic, and we've covered so much today, but really just a corner of it. So where can people connect with you if they're thinking, hey, I know this is a problem for me in my business, or oh my goodness, I didn't know that email deliverability was a thing, and I've struggled with this forever, and I didn't know that there was a person who could help me fix it. Where's the best place for them to connect with you?
Yeah, I think so. The best place is just to go to funneltechie.com. That's my hub. You'll notice that there is a nav bar at the top. So if you need some email service, I've got an email services link. There's a bunch of base packages there. There's even a 1-hour consult call if you want to grab that. I've got a bunch of other services. I also have a premium service that's ideal for people that have a large list and they want to make sure that they get their deliverability started correctly. It's a way that I help manage this for a 3-month period. If you want to retain me or continue that service after the 3-month commitment, then you could just stay on the subscription. If not, we can just end it there. But that's very useful for especially people that are sending well over 100,000 emails per month and beyond. Bunch of other tools are listed there, but that's going to be the best way to connect with me. There's also a discovery call link that you'll see. Just go to funneltechie.com.
Awesome. I will be sure to share that in the show notes as well.
Awesome.
Thank you so much, Matt. You've shared all sorts of very valuable information that is so relevant to anyone who is sending emails in, the today's era, which is a different space and needs to be taken seriously. Otherwise, you just never know when all of a sudden, even if it was working, it may fall out of because you're no longer compliant. Super important.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Don't forget to click subscribe, comment below, and share the episode with a fellow entrepreneur. If you want to take us on the road, we are available everywhere you listen to podcasts. Thanks so much. See you next time.